I want to shift gears, though, over to what we're seeing play out under a new administration. We've been talking about the effectiveness of the Pfizer vaccine coming in stronger than expected, but there's a key variable we're going to be discussing later on in the show when it comes to how many Americans will actually want to get that vaccine when it becomes ready, should it get FDA approval. Obviously, we're going to be operating with that decision here in a new administration beginning in January, but want to highlight what we heard from President-elect Joe Biden and his VP Kamala Harris over the weekend in their first speeches. An interesting picture being painted by them, talking about unity here and the possibilities in the next 4 years. Take a listen.
Let us be the nation that we know we can be, a nation united, a nation strengthened, a nation healed, the United States of America.
But while I may be the first woman in this office, I will not be the last. Because every little girl watching tonight sees that this is a country of possibilities.
So there's the message coming from that new administration here. And a lot of their focus has been on handling the coronavirus pandemic here, announcing a new task force as well, being one of their big first pushes here to sort of break that down for us. Is our next guest here. Austan Goolsbee is professor of economics at the University of Chicago Booth School of Business and former chairman of the Council of Economic Advisors under President Obama. Professor Goolsbee, appreciate you coming back on here to chat with us. I mean, when we look at this, it's not as if a lot of the struggles the country is going through right now are just going to disappear with the new administration, but it sounds like they are laser focused and really restoring that faith in America's process and handling of the pandemic at hand here. What's your take right now on where we're headed and how that transition process, since I know you were a part of Obama's transition there, how important is that going to be as we move forward?
I think it's pretty important. This issue about the vaccine kind of adds a new wrinkle to it. But I've been saying for months, the virus is the boss. And on the economy, the best way to get the economy back to where we were before is to get control of the spread of this virus. If we could get a vaccine, that'd be a tremendous leap forward for us. Even until we get a vaccine, or if something were to go wrong with that vaccine, we can still get control of the spread of the virus through public health measures. And I was heartened to see the members of this task force that President-elect Biden put forward. They're not especially partisan people. They're scientists. They're doctors. They're exactly the kind of people that you need to give confidence that we're going to take this serious and we're going to get control of it. Because, as I say, that controlling the medical side is critical to the economic growth that we need.
Having said that, there is still a 2-month lag here before the Biden administration actually goes into office. And we've heard from a lot of these public health officials who have said these next few months is really when this virus is going to peak. So having said that, we've got the announcement from this new Biden administration about who the public health officials that will be in charge will be. How do you think they manage the situation over the next few months when they're not necessarily in charge and the Trump administration may not necessarily want to play ball?
Yeah, you raise a critically important issue, and that is, if you look in the history of the United States, at least on economic crises, many of these big crises happen during the transition from one administration to the next administration. That happened in 2008, that happened in 1932. And if there's a big difference of opinion of what should be done or what the approach is, that can spiral out of control, especially with an infectious disease. And my understanding is that the people in the government now whose job it is to declare the transition and to open up the transition money so that the incoming administration can plan, that they thus far refuse to acknowledge that Joe Biden was the winner. And so they're not putting the transition resources forward. I hope that they revisit that decision in the coming days, because this is really important. Like you say, the virus is spreading at record levels right now, and we don't have a vaccine for a bit. So we've got to get the transition stood up.
Yeah, that's kind of, I mean, if I'm an investor watching this all play out, that would be my biggest fear at where we're at right now, because you think about how long it's going to take to really get a handle on this. It's going to be some time. The vaccine's well off in terms of being widely distributed when we listen to health experts there. So, I mean, we're still not going to have clarity, it looks like, on who controls the Senate until January, and we get those runoff elections in Georgia. I'm curious to get your take on how much, I guess, the emphasis here to get a stimulus bill, a relief bill on the coronavirus front, is getting pushed back here into next year, if you think about how much uncertainty now exists there in government.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. The announcement about the vaccine could actually go either way. I mean, I know conventional wisdom has been, well, we still got to find this out about the Senate. We still going to wait for the new administration. So maybe some kind of rescue and relief package would be delayed. I think if you knew that this isn't going to be a perpetual rescue, that there is light at the end of the tunnel, I actually think that might raise the chance they could do a deal right now. If they say, okay, well, fine, we're just talking about 5 months, let's say, then let's agree and let's do some relief for 5 months. I think some component of the Senate was let's call it bailout fatigued, and the thought that this might go for years and we just have to keep coming up with more rescue and relief money, they were kind of choking on that. So I think it actually could put their butts in the seats to have more of a discussion, if you will, on this negotiation.
Austan, what about the other legislative priorities that Biden campaigned on? You've heard the argument from the other side that Joe Biden doesn't have the big mandate going in because the country is so divided right now. When you look at something like his tax policies, for example, the rollback of the Trump taxes, is that pretty much shelved right now until we know? I mean, I guess there's always the possibility that those 2 Senate seats in Georgia could go to the Democrats, but it certainly doesn't look optimistic right now.
Well, look, I'm just a policy guy. In a way, you're asking me about political advice of who has what votes. I mean, I think let's wait now for a couple of, maybe it'll be a week or so before we get the final results in. It certainly doesn't seem like a narrow victory that President Biden is going to come forward with. He might have more than 300 electoral votes and win the popular vote by 5, 6, or even 7 million. That's not a massive landslide, but that's not a squeaker. So I think the question of what will be the mandate will somewhat be determined issue by issue. On taxes, I would just point out that the American people overwhelmingly agree with Vice President Biden, now President-elect Biden's plan that high-income people and large corporations should pay a more of a fair share. And I think the fact that we have a president of the United States who's a billionaire who paid $700 or something in taxes, that is a sign of a system that is desperately in need of reform.
Yeah, one of the big question marks we've been trying to tease out here is how much of the rally we've seen post-election day was tied to maybe some investors hoping that, locked government here, gridlock, might actually prevent Joe Biden from instituting some of those tax changes. But we'll see how that plays out. One question I had for you, though, lastly, when we talk about this recovery and what could happen, we were just talking with our last guest about this potential pull forward that we've seen in a lot of the demand here and how people may have shifted away from services and travel into maybe home furnishings in lockdown. But my big question to you, and this is one I've been asking a lot of our market and economist guests here, how much might be lost when we think about that, demand here entering the holiday season, since that's not one that you get a do-over for. You can't buy Christmas presents in February or January. So talk to me about that. If we don't get a stimulus or relief bill here, how much the American consumer might still be dented when we move into holiday season?
Yeah, it's an interesting idea. That is a theory, I guess I'd say, that would change the composition of consumer spending. But obviously, from the macro perspective, what matters is the total amount of consumer spending. And since so much of the U.S. economy is driven by service sectors, industries, including healthcare, leisure and entertainment, hospitality, restaurants, a whole bunch of stuff like that, it could be a blow to certain types of things that you couldn't buy a Christmas present or that you didn't want to go out to the store. but I kind of think the overall impact on the economy is massively positive if people get the sense that right around the corner, we're going to be back to something like normal.